Before we get started, I just wanted to announce that I am doing Movember. It is basically when guys will grow out their mustaches in the month of November to help raise awareness for men's health issues such as prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and men's suicide. I've been doing this for a couple years now. It's an issue that hits close to my family. My sister-in-law raises money every year for this, so if you would like to donate, that would be incredibly appreciated because every dollar counts. I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description below. But for now, let's get to the video.
Space crossing into the traffic, the header is down! It's Giroud!
Okay, I know, there's a lot of great rivalries in MLS, and there have been some amazing playoff battles over the years. Some of them probably deserve their own video. But I'm not sure there has ever been a playoff series this intense. This was a series of absolute madness. A series like no other. A series that involved rivals, but not just on the field, but also in real life. Like, seriously, these two cities don't like each other. And there's genuine animosity that's been building up between these two cities for years. Their culture, values, different. Montreal, French Canadian. Toronto, English Canadian. Montreal, more old school, laid back. Toronto, new school, flashy. Also, this was two teams trying to make history by not only making their first MLS Cup, but the country of Canada's first ever MLS Cup. It was bragging rights on the line.
Before I dive in, remember, if you're a fan of MLS or just curious to find out more about the league, please subscribe for more MLS content. And also, let me know what you want to see a video on in the future.
Up until this point, Toronto FC were mostly a joke. Yeah, I tried to find a softer word. I tried not to come off as so mean, but the reality is that Toronto FC were terrible. In the team's first 8 years of existence, they collected 2 wooden spoons, never finished higher than 11th in the league, and compiled a goal differential of negative 126. And now, to be fair, they did get close to qualifying for the playoffs in 2009. They just needed to win on the last day of the regular season. But they lost 5-0 to the worst team in the league that season.
In 2014, the team started to make some big changes. Oh yeah, Tim Bezpachenko, he was making moves. First, they brought in Michael Bradley and Jermaine Defoe. And okay, I know, Defoe, he didn't last very long in a Toronto FC uniform, but even still, that was a sign of ambition, right? And yeah, they weren't very close to the playoffs in 2014, but then, the next year in 2015, they bring in Josie Altidore and Sebastian Giovinco. Oh yeah. Now, we're talking.
While the team started off in normal TFC fashion, 1-4, they started to gel. Giovinco became an absolute menace and one of the brightest stars of the league. And for the first time in team history, Toronto FC didn't finish with a losing record. Not a winning record either, as they finished 15-15-4 with 0 goal differential, but definite progress. In the Eastern Conference knockout game, they just didn't have it. They got absolutely butt-whipped by rival Montreal Impact 3-0. And as if that wasn't humbling enough, Montreal also eliminated TFC in the Canadian Championship. Hey, speaking of Montreal, they fared a little better than Toronto FC at this time, but it still wasn't exactly all roses.
Okay, stick with me on this one. In the NBA, they consider the worst place to be is middle of the pack. Because if you're a top-tier team and you're competing for a championship, yeah, obviously that's good. Everyone wants to be there. But if you're a bottom-tier team, you have a chance to land a really high lottery pick. And you have a chance to draft the next mega superstar in the league. And then if you're in the middle, sneaking into the playoffs as a 7 or 8 seed, you're not good enough to win the championship, and you're not bad enough to draft the next face of the league. You're just sort of there. And it's really hard to build up and compete for a championship without just tearing it all down and starting over. Okay, I know MLS isn't a perfect comparison to the NBA, but I think the best example of a middle-tier team in MLS in the early 2010s to mid-2010s had to be l'Impact de Montreal. They weren't amazing, they weren't horrible, they were just sort of there.
They were okay. I don't think anyone was seriously picking Montreal to win it all, but they were certainly capable of finishing around 500 and making the playoffs. 2016 was when the tides started to turn, because up until this point, Montreal had been winning their rivalry, at least in terms of overall success within MLS. Montreal finished with a better record 3 of 4 seasons. Montreal knocked out Toronto out of the Canadian Championship 3 years in a row, plus they made deeper runs in the CCL. But Toronto had started to build its juggernaut just a few years prior, and in 2016, we saw them transform from team on the rise to real contender. While Montreal was still middle of the pack, Toronto finished with a better record overall, finishing 3rd in the East and 5th overall. Montreal? They finished 500, 5th in the East and 11th overall, which was about the usual. Toronto earned their first ever playoff win against the Union and then absolutely demolished NYCFC 7-0 in aggregate. That included a 5-0 road win. Montreal, meanwhile, went to DC, dispatched United 4-2, and then took on top seed in the East and perennial playoff chokers, Red Bull New York, in the conference semis. A ridiculous strike on the run by Mancosu gave the Impact the lead after the first leg, and a Nacho Piatti brace in the second leg gave the Impact the win.
All this talk of New York is red, New York is blue. No, actually in 2016, New York was Canadian, clearly.
Now, I knew this series was a big deal because of what I said earlier, the rivalry, the chance to be the first Canadian team in MLS Cup, but even I underestimated just how hyped these fan bases would get. And I underestimated just how epic this matchup could be. And the start of the biggest soccer matches in Canadian club history got delayed because they needed to repaint the field. Yeah, someone measured the boxes too small. Like, how does that happen? Now, some have speculated this was just a sneaky strategy to throw Toronto off guard. Kind of like how some have speculated that power outage at Super Bowl 47 was a strategy from the NFL to get Baltimore off guard because they were up by so much. I know, it sounds crazy. I don't know if I buy it. But then, the match actually got started. And, oh my God.
Ball forward and helped on by Bernier. Dominic Adoro is in here. It's Adoro for Montreal! And it's the former Toronto FC player who opens the scoring in the first leg at Olympic Stadium. Down by Adoro. He tries to find Piatti with a lovely ball through. Piatti's ball back across goal. It's 2 for Montreal.
12 minutes into the game. Toronto, what are you doing? 2-0 already? Hey, maybe there was something to delaying the start of the game. But still plenty of time to come back though, right? Like, they just can't give up another one.
Players being away on international duty during the break. Altidore and Bradley were both away for the United States. Oyongo charging forward here. TFC defense backpedaling. Oyongo will have a crack at goal! Oyongo scores!
Oh. I remember watching this, and I remember thinking, okay, someone's got to step to him. Someone step to him. Someone... Oh my God. Like, it almost happened in slow motion. Oyongo, a defender, dribbling from half field, and no one within 10 yards of him. In the first hour of this game, Toronto FC had transformed from the team that finished 3rd in the Eastern Conference back to the team they were in their first 8 years of existence. The crowd of over 61,000 had exploded, and with the closed roof of Olympic Stadium, the sound reverberated. It reached up to over 100 decibels. It was clear that Toronto's backline was their Achilles heel in this matchup, and with Montreal's deadly counter, maybe this moment was just too big for the Reds. Maybe they weren't ready. And then something snapped. Toronto found another gear, and 15 minutes later...
Tomorrow, it's that cross back to the edge of the area. It's Sebastian Javinko with an opportunity. Roll forward for Beitashaw. Beitashaw back to Ricketts. Toronto FC can't find their way through. Now it's Altidore with a header. That's the goal they wanted. The away goal that could prove so precious.
A massive goal by Josie pulls one back. Toronto has a pulse again. And just 5 minutes after that,
Morrow's ball through towards Altidore. Altidore still battling, comes to Ricketts. Now it's Michael Bradley. My word, Toronto FC get a second.
The final whistle blew, and Montreal led after the first leg 3-2. The win was nice, but giving up 2 away goals was not. And in that second half, Toronto FC went from without a prayer to a fighting chance.
in the second leg in Toronto, a temporary grandstand to the south end of the stadium was added to bring the attendance up to over 36,000. Toronto looked more control in the beginning of this one, possessing the ball, making Montreal chase early. But despite the freezing temperatures outside, tempers on the field were red hot out of the gate. In the 13th minute, Josie Altidore collided with Hernan Bernadello near midfield, which apparently was not yellow card worthy. The task for Toronto wasn't insurmountable, but it did get a whole lot harder as Montreal once again struck first.
Short trying to track back. And Kosu finds Adoro. It's Adoro! Dominic Adoro scores again, as he did in the first leg.
Dominic Aduro again. Just like the first leg, he gets Montreal on the board first. Aduro actually played for Toronto in 2014 and scored just twice in 24 appearances. Yeah, not great. But when he transferred to Montreal, his numbers were much better. Aduro was known for two things. One, shaving a pizza into his hair, and two, his speed. And in both legs, the TFC backline couldn't keep up with his quickness. The aggregate now stood at 4-2.
Goes across there to take it. Played it towards Haglund with a header. It's split off the line, and COPA scoops it in from close range. Armando COPA, 36 minutes gone. He scores his first goal for Toronto FC. It's tied at 1-1.
15 minutes later, off the corner, Javinko's ball finds Haglund, and Armando Cooper, who hadn't scored for Toronto yet this season, pokes it into the net. Game on, 1-1, 4-3 on the aggregate. You know, one of the things that made this series so exciting was that the goals often came in bunches. In the last leg, Montreal was able to score their first two goals just 3 minutes apart, and Toronto was able to score their two goals just 5 minutes apart. And leg two was no different, because just 8 minutes after their first, Toronto off another Javinko corner.
Javinko's ball in. Altidore with a header. Josie Altidore cannot stop scoring right now.
Finds Josie Altidore. Gotta guard that near post. This is the celebration worthy of a game winner. The pure jubilation on the faces of Toronto. Like after a 3-goal deficit, they would now advance because of away goals. Didn't last long, though.
Picked up by Venegas. Through for Piatti here. Nacho Piatti! It's in! Montreal have the goal that ties it up on the night at 2-2.
Chaos in the box. Somehow, someway, the ball trickles into the net. Yeah, sorry, Clint Irwin. This one's on you. Caught in no man's land, and Montreal ties the game and takes the lead in the aggregate. And also scores the extremely important second away goal. Scoring just one more would give the Impact the away goal advantage and force TFC to need to score 3. But 15 minutes later,
Cooper goes short towards Justin Morrow. And now it's played into space for Morrow to chip this one into the edge of the box. Haglund with a header! Nick Haglund climbing high! It's 3-2 for TFC, and it is tied 5-5 on aggregate. Once again, set pieces causing problems for Montreal.
Haglund, who, remember, got close in the first half, comes through with a bullet header from the penalty spot. Bedlam in Toronto again. After 90 minutes, both Toronto and Montreal tied 5-5 in aggregate, both teams with 2 away goals, extra time coming. And just 6 minutes in, Javinko has to come off because of an apparent injury. A lot of respect here from the Montreal players coming up and consoling Javinko. My initial thought was, this is a huge loss for Toronto. I mean, I get it. You need him for MLS Cup if you make it. And if he can't go anymore, you got to take him off. But there goes so much creativity up top, as well as a surefire PK taker if it goes to penalties. In comes Benoit Cheyrou. Certainly no slouch, but also no Javinko. And 2 minutes later...
For Altidore, out for Beitashour on the right. Beitashour with a good ball into the middle. The stooping header, and it's in. It's Benoit Cheyrou, just off the bench for the injured Javinko, and he puts Toronto FC. Jonathan Osorio. Now it's Josie Altidore. Altidore shreds off the challenge of Cabrera. Ricketts is in there. It's tossing Ricketts. It's 2 goals in 2 minutes, and the Canadian puts Toronto FC on the verge of MLS Cup.
Oh my God. With 2 goals in the first 10 minutes of extra time, TFC was able to hold on. Toronto FC officially became the first Canadian team to ever make MLS Cup. A series for the ages. We saw the stars, the DPs step up with crucial goals. But in the end, it was the guys on the bench who became the unsung heroes in this matchup. Toronto FC would go on to lose MLS Cup to the Seattle Sounders in a PK shootout. But they got the revenge next year. There have been many epic playoff series in MLS's history. But for me, this is the pinnacle. This is the greatest playoff series I have ever seen in any sport.
Yeah, other leagues may have been around longer, other leagues may have more tradition, other leagues may have better players, but the one thing that MLS has over all those other leagues is the playoffs. And this is my hot take of all hot takes. Tradition be damned, every league in the world should have playoffs. Every league in the world should have the chance to see their own version of Toronto-Montreal 2016. You know, usually I'm pretty good at writing a script and painting a picture with storytelling, but to close out this video, I think I'll reference a quote from Waking the Red. It's the SB Nation blog for Toronto FC. They had an article about this series. And this quote read, "Over those 210 minutes, the club had officially slayed the myriad of demons that hampered them for decades." Couldn't have said it better myself. Because for the longest time, Toronto were that team. They were the team where you can look at another team struggling and say, yeah, they might suck, but hey, at least they're not Toronto. Not anymore. Not after that series. Now we just say that about FC Cincinnati. Thank you for watching. Again, please subscribe for more MLS content. And I'll see you next time.